Who do you pay dividend to? It can't be after dividend. It's after tax, after interest and tax. Whatever is left is the earnings attribute after interest and tax. That means it's PBIT. Sorry, PAT, PAT, profit after tax. Profit after interest and okay. I think he acknowledges that. So it means that earnings attributable to equity here refers to profit after interest and tax. Profit after interest and tax. That's what we're looking at here. Then over it's not the value, it's the number of it. It's not the value of the shares, it's the number of the shares. Because you want to calculate what each share earns. So then dividend per share will be dividend over what? Dividend. Of course, you know the difference between earnings per share and dividend per share is retention. Do you agree with me?
Yes, sir.
So it's total dividend. The dividend per share. You know, so a dividend per share is the difference between earnings per share and dividend per share is just retention. What is the retention? The level of the, companies when they earn, they either pay out as dividend or they return. Some are more liberal in dividend payment depending on their persuasions. Some have reasons why they think they should pay more dividend. Others have reasons why they think they should pay less dividend. For example, those who are very quick to access funds from the stock market, it's not necessary for us to keep this thing since we have alternative sources of fund. So but those who don't have alternative sources of fund, let's fall back to our earnings, plow back our earnings. So we'll just pay less dividend and then do more of retention. So it is between staying liquid and paying dividend. Between retention and dividend, there's a trade-off between retention and dividend. So if a firm chooses to do more of retention, they will only pay less of dividend. So if they pay more of dividend, they will do less of retention. All right. So we'll go to the next one, which is the P ratio. What's the P ratio? P ratio. That's price earnings ratio. The price earnings ratio is looking at the ratio of the price of a share to the earnings of the share. That's the PE ratio. The PE ratio is a very important ratio. It will tell you probably how long it takes earning to liquidate what you're going to spend to buy the share. It tells you how long it will take the earnings arising from the share to liquidate, more like the payback. It gives you insight into the payback. So PE ratio is MPS over EPS. MPS over EPS. That means so that's the P ratio. Now, earnings yield is the reciprocal of P ratio. You agree with me? Earnings yield is the reciprocal of P ratio. That's EPS over MPS. Then dividend yield is DPS over MPS.
Sorry, sir. What's the full meaning of the PE?
Price earning ratio. Price earning ratio. Price earning ratio.
So what about the MPS?
MPS is market price per share.
Oh.
You know, these are ratios that an investor is particularly interested in the market. You know, the earnings yield is okay. The earnings per share is 2 naira, and then the market price per share is 20 naira. What is the yield? That's the percentage. It means 2 over 20 times 100 over 1. But then the PE ratio is very important. It will become a number of times. You know, how long will it take the earnings per share to pay me back the money I am going to spend to buy the share? Assuming I am investing in a share now, the share price. All right. Share price is 100 naira. And then the company's EPS, maintainable earnings per share, just earnings per share. EPS is like 5 naira. The last or if this 5 naira is per year, it means 100 divided by 5. It will take 20 years for you to recoup what you're investing. I don't know whether you're getting the point.
Doctor, we are here. We are here.
Oh, we are.
Okay, so then what is the earnings? In this case, what percent? You know, the earnings, that's the average dividend over time is 2 naira. It means the dividend yield will be 2 over 100 times 100. Because we know that what does it mean? What's the difference between a highly levered firm and a lowly levered firm?
Than equity.
I don't agree with you at all. The firm is highly geared that it will reduce the cost of capital. It's neither here nor there. And that is not even what I'm asking you. I'm asking you what would be the predominant cost of capital? You're looking at the weighted average cost of
Interest on loans.
The predominant feature there will be interest. That means they'll pay more of interest because they have debts. And of course, you know that if you have more of debt, if you have more of debt, you am I correct? You have to deduct interest as a strong obligation. You are under obligation to pay your interest. But is a firm under obligation to pay dividend?
No, sir.
No
No.
firm is under obligation. No firm is under obligation to pay dividend. No firm is under obligation to pay dividend, but you are under obligation to pay interest. And so if you have more of debt, it means your interest obligation would be a certainty. You must pay them. Even if you're running at a loss, you will borrow to pay, but you don't borrow to pay dividend. I mean that having more of equity is better than having more of debt. Neither here nor there. It depends on the firm, and then it depends on the ambition. You know, a firm, there are some drives or expectations that a firm will want to attain, which equity alone cannot manage. So, which, if you have an ambitious plan, you know, expansion and all that, so in that light, you may find out that equity alone will not give you what you want. So at a stage in a firm's life, you may have a need for debt. You know, you may just have that need for debt. So you can't say it must be debt all through or it must be equity all through. But all we are looking at is having an optimal capital mix, which is that capital structure that gives you the least cost when it comes to debt equity combination. So that is just what we are looking at. So, but just know that if you have more of debt, you are to confront more of interest, and then if you have less of debt, you will pay less of what interest. Are we together?
So
how do we get? What is the debt equity ratio? What's the leverage ratio? That's the ratio of debt, total debt over what? Equity. That gives you the leverage ratio. So even asset, one of the indicators of your long run survival is your net worth asset. Your net asset. Your net asset is important. So it shows your terminal solvency. It's an indicator of terminal solvency. You know what I mean? Your liquidity ratios are indicators of a technical solvency, while your net asset is an indicator of your terminal worth solvency. So if your debt is if your total asset, in fact, let me put the formula here. Net asset is total asset minus total liabilities, right? I guess I'm right.
yes, sir. All right.
So, and what does that show you? It shows you your ability to stay afloat in the long run. That means you are solvent if all you have can take care of all your owing, and then you still have a leftover. That's an indicator of terminal solvency. So, but the other side, the solvency ratios are indicators of technical solvency. It means a business can be technically solvent, but terminally insolvent. can also be technically insolvent but terminally solvent. The other one is looking at the long run. The ratios. Now, what I may ask you, I'm not going to go through these ratios. We have some solvents about the formula and the rest of them. What I may ask you is the way I'm going to structure the question. I will give you a financial statement and ask you to discuss efficiency, solvency, profitability, and then the market ratios of the firm you are looking at. So that's the area or the angle. Or alternatively, you may have some give you industry average, trend analysis. Answer your question before I move on. Like what I've done tonight is I've given attention to interpretation to me than just calculating the ratios. Interpretation is more important than just calculating the ratios. So don't forget. Because as an MBA person, as a manager, you are not just looking at those figures, you're looking at what those figures mean to help. I think I've mentioned them. Net asset is one. We have the debt equity ratio is another one. That's of shareholders fund. We have SHF / total debt. To have total debt all these are indicators of I don't know whether you got that. Any other question? This is just one. Remember, I asked you to read a part of the manual that has central banking, commercial bank. SHF is shareholders fund, shareholders fund, shareholders fund. So please read all those financial system discussions, central banking, DF, that's development financial institutions, capital markets, money markets, all that. Please, you have to read them. It is important you read them. It's very, very important that you read them. So with that in the bag, I'd like to speak, let me make an introduction to working capital management. There are three more things I need to talk with you if time will permit us. I want to discuss working capital management. I like to talk about cost of capital, and then I like to talk about dividend policy. So these three things, I think I should be able to discuss them. Okay, let me just introduce us to working capital management. So what is working capital? I just made a statement that links us to working capital. Staying solvent as a business, you are interested in your working capital. So working capital is precisely the excess of current assets over current liabilities. Excess of current assets over current liabilities. Current asset minus current liabilities makes reference to you. Decision to stay solvent, decision on the ability to meet maturing financial worth obligations. Now, when you are looking at your working capital, there are certain components of your assets and liabilities that you must give attention to. Then you must give attention to inventory, you must give attention to debt, you must give attention to cash, you must give attention which include stock, debtors, cash, right? And then you see, there's a conversion cycle here. Then you must, okay, before I get to that, you must also give attention to your current liabilities, which majorly includes what? Creditors, and then we'll have accruals. And then here we can have prepayments. So now in managing working capital, you must these current assets to settle your current liabilities and then have a leftover so as to stay on and stay afloat as a business. That's very, very easy. Two hours still running. Okay, so in current assets, you're looking at stock, debt, cash, prepayments. In current liabilities, you're looking at creditors and accruals. You see, there's a movement from stock to debt, from debt to cash. Movement from stock to debt. Note this. From stock to debt. Debt to cash, right? Am I correct? Hello?
Yes, doctor. Yes, doctor. Yes.
Doctor, you're correct.
Please, do I see our people in this class? Some people are already sleeping. Some are snoring.
We're here.
We are here, sir. We are here.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, so the cycle is when I get maybe stock of raw materials. Okay, let's start from here. Raw materials, RM, will move to WIP. That's work in progress. The work in progress moves to FG, that's finished goods, you know. And then finished goods when sold or sold on credit. If sold on credit, it becomes what? Debt, right? Then from debt, cash is paid. Then this cash does not remain cash. It will have to return to raw material. Then from raw material, another journey begins, down to work in progress, down to finished goods, down to debt again. Short time, right? Have it run full and run without inhibition, run seamlessly. That can determine how solvent the business